Welcome back. You're watching the home of the whole story. This is KTN News, and this is a news center where I'm holding court with Dan Shikanda, the chairman of AFC Leopards. We're slicing and dicing what is happening with the football fraternity here in the country, looking at the sorry state of affairs with the current state of play. We have a caretaker committee right now who actually they're running the affairs of football here in the country. So when did the rain start beating us? Dan, back to you. We want to talk about also self-interest. Maybe Nick has been self-serving himself at the expense of FKF, especially when it comes to selling of players as well, so to speak, to other big clubs in the country, outside the country, I should say. And most of the youthful players being channeled to, Kariobangi Sharks. Would you just kindly tell us what was happening with that particular scenario, and how was he using his office to try and game the system?
Yeah, it's a very sorry state when there's conflict of interest and you are the head of an institution. It will definitely not go down well, both as a both professionally and maybe I can say even in ways that you can actually help the youthful players. Mm-hmm. We have seen a scenario whereby a lot of uprising, key promising youthful players are moved towards one direction. And at the end of the day, once they go there, you find that the dynamics of any organization, of any institution, you find that they will struggle a lot when they're down there with maybe a small team like Kariobangi Sharks. Not with any due respect to them, because they are big guns in this country who, if these youthful players could have come to them, definitely there could be a lot of change in their direction of how their career progresses. Yes. We have seen youths being cheated or being told, if you come this direction, you will be called to the under-23, you will be called to the national team. And they disregard each and everything and go there. So you find yourself with so much talent, at the expense of other teams, and then you start saying that you actually lose focus on these players. There's this business of selling players outside this country. And for a player to go outside the country, mostly those European countries look at call-ups, look at how many call-ups you've had in the national team. Yes. It's absurd when you tell me that FC and Gor Mahia, we lack talent and we lack members, players in the national team. You call two goalkeepers from one team, goalkeeper 1, goalkeeper 2, to take them to the Cup of Nations. And those two goalkeepers are not, in fact, the ones who kept the most clean sheets. No. So it just tells you clearly.
Meritocracy is not there.
There are other vested interests. Okay. And this is actually what has been killing our football. This is actually what has been making our football not grow. We need to be fair. Football is all about fairness, fair play. If goalkeeper Saruni of Ulinzi has kept the most clean sheets, that tells you, he is the best goalkeeper. Let him go to the national team. If Wanga is the topmost scorer in the national team, there's no way you'll drop him at an expense of a player you're telling us, this is a youthful player, we want him to go and have the experience. We are not going to get experience from the Cup of Nations. We are going to play. We are not going just to participate to give some players experience. We are taking our best to make sure we get results so that our country can be somewhere on the map. We dropped Alan Wanga as our top scorer to get some names or some players simply because they went the Kariobangi way. No, that is wrong. And we condemned that, and we will still condemn that, because that is how we kill our football. It's not just about the money. Money is critical for football management and running of these teams. But there are things which this federation has killed that has actually buried our football.
So it seems morale is at an all-time low within these particular clubs because of the management that we are experiencing right now, if this is what is really happening. But aside from that, let me just ask you, do you think then the FKF has generated more revenue, has lost more money during the tenure of Nick Mwendwa as opposed to other years, other tenures that we've had before. It seems people are greatly shy to associate with FKF, even from the betting clubs, as it were, because of the management that is under Nick Mandwa.
Yes, I can say that one for free. I have been at the helm of FC Leopards, and for the last 2 years, I've been trying to get corporate sponsorship to come and sponsor FC Leopards.
Yes. Unfortunately,
I have, if you look at my laptop, we have almost 40 proposals, which are actually just at the brink of saying yes or no. But when they look at our football leadership, when they look at what has been happening, you find somebody, at the moment, I don't want to go into this murky water of football. Give me some time. We have lost quite a number of those would-be partners. And I can say, if we opened up our football, and I have reached a stage where I told myself,
yes,
I will not kill myself with corporate sponsorship, because there's still a lot to be done for corporates to start looking at football as an industry, not just as pastime. We have lost so much goodwill under the past federation because it has been a unilateral decision maker by somebody sitting somewhere and deciding this is the best for me. Because for anyone to come and sponsor football in this country, they will definitely ask people, what do you think? Can I put my 60 million into FC, into Gor Mahia, into the league? And they will definitely get answers.
Yes.
No, don't put because of A, B, C, D. And for us to get corporate sponsorship and get the government fully backing us, we have to put our houses in order.
Yes.
We have to be honest, and this one I want to be honest with our members, with stakeholders of football. The federation has openly been fighting FC and Gor Mahia. The problems we are going through, the FIFA issues, has been the federation, because you deny us our money. You let our players suffer because we cannot pay. For example, federation now owes FC Leopards 3.3 million. From April, we have been their flag bearer in the matches they've been showing, but they have not been paying us. So how do you expect Dan Shikanda to pay players, and yet you are not giving us our money? There are deals that the federation signs on our behalf, which we are supposed to be part and party of them, but we don't see them. At the end of the day, you find that, yes, the buck stops with us, the clubs, or for maybe running our clubs in a prudent manner, in a way that we can attract also sponsorship. But if the environment is not conducive, I can tell you, you will not attract any sponsorship.
But Dan, let me ask you, also we can just sit here and bellyache, raise accusatory fingers, but also within these particular clubs, AFC Lopez and Gor Mahia, well, we can say that even you're squeaky clean. You're not having all that halo, shimmering and shining on your head as well. Why is FKF also on your case? Maybe because, first of all, of your mismanagement of this particular funds that comes from FKF in the first place. So you've not been squeaky clean as well from the beginning in running the affairs of these, clubs as well.
I can tell you for free, and I'll talk on behalf of AFC Leopards, any monies we've been given. For example, Sports Pesa, when it was there, it used to give AFC Leopards 57 million. And at that time, there was gate collection. So FC was making about 70 million, because gate collection, you can say maybe 10 to 13 million. 70 million to run FC Leopards at that time. When we came in, the sponsor left. We ran FC Leopards for the first season without sponsorship. And we played 27 league matches and 4 cup matches without any sponsorship. Come second year, I got sponsorship of 40 million. Remember, if the 57 million plus gate collection was not enough to run the club, what is 40 million? It is definitely not enough. Then come the third year, this year.
Yes.
I am running AFC Leopards at half the budget that we started with BetSafe, because we are actually being given 1.6 million per month. My salary cap, my salary for the players is about 3.7 million per month. So when I'm getting 1.6 million, it tells you I have to top up to reach the 3.7 million to pay salaries. The federation is supposed to be giving me money monthly. It was supposed to be giving us 800,000 monthly. But since April, they stopped. They stopped giving us money. Up to the other day is when they gave us 300,000 after they suspended us. For example, when they suspended us, why did the federation suspend us? The federation suspended us because we refused to honor a match between AFC and Gor Mahia. And the reason being, somebody was being used to tell our players that the money we were to be given after playing the final of the Betway Cup,
yes,
the 1 million which was due to AFC and the 2 million which was due to Gor Mahia, had been given to the club officials, which was not the truth. And the players were actually planning to boycott the game and embarrass the leadership of AFC and Gor Mahia. So we talked to our players and we told them, the federation has not given us this money. That was 1 month down the line. And we told the players, we have even contacted the sponsor who says he has given the money. But the money has not been given to the clubs. So we told them, instead of boycotting the match,
yes,
let us, as the leadership of AFC and Gor Mahia, let us jointly write to the federation and tell the federation, we are not going to honor this match because you are saying you have given us the money and you have not given us. So if you have given us the money, we will honor the match as leadership of these clubs. But if you have not given us the money, we will not parade our teams to honor this match. And that was it. So when we didn't honor the match, that is when the players realized the federation was lying. It had not given us the money 1 month down the line. So instead of now us sitting down and sorting that, the federation comes up, suspends us indefinitely, and fines AFC 6 million and Gor Mahia 4 million. So if that match can generate 6 million, and you've been giving us 200,000 per match,
yes,
when you broadcast our matches, which means you've been stealing from us, because these clubs can only grow if the revenues that they generate, they are given. But if you're not giving us our rightful revenue that we generate, how are we going to grow this match, these clubs?
Dan, considering also that we've been living in COVID times with the COVID-19 pandemic around us as well, economy has been tanking, things have been contracting as far as finances is concerned. Could that also be a good, valid reason that, yes, money has not been flowing to the clubs? Football was not played anywhere in the world because of COVID-19 pandemic. This is not an exception.
That is not a valid reason, because on this case of the federation with us, the sponsor gave the money on time. For example, BetKing and StarTimes, they tell us, we remit your money, but we haven't been getting the money. And it became very difficult, as you say, in these tough economic times where COVID has been ravaging all over.
Yes.
It was even hard for us to run these clubs because we are not getting the money that we are entitled to. Remember, the money we are getting from the betting companies is not gate collections. It is money they are giving for us to showcase, to market their products. We have actually played. The federation showed 86% of our matches. We are the team they showed the most matches. But I am disappointed to tell you we got the least amount of monies. Teams like Western Steamer, whose the federation showed, I think, less than 6 or 7 of their matches, got more money than AFC Leopards, yeah? Where you showed almost all our matches, apart from 5 or 6. But the scenario was, when Dan Shikanda asks for the money we are rightful due to, I am told I'm fighting the federation. Exactly the same thing they were trying to do to the CS, sponsor some keyboard warriors to fight the minister, the CS in social media, has been done to me, has been done to Rachel. Why? Because we are asking for our money. So if you are given our money in April, how come by September you have not remitted the money? Is that good governance? Is that proper management of finances in your league? And we are the best brand of your league, because why are you showing our matches day in, day out? We are not gaining from you broadcasting our matches. For example, we have written to Star Times now, and we've told them clearly, we will not honor these matches we are playing at 1. Because now the government has opened the stadiums, funds will be coming in. We want to play at 4 so that we can get some little money from gate collections. So when you tell me to play on Friday at 1, and then at the end of the day, I'm not gaining anything. You as the federation, you are gaining. You have a sponsor who is broadcasting the matches. The sponsor who is broadcasting the matches, he is gaining. But me as AFC Leopards, I'm gaining 0 because I'm not getting that money. So we cannot hide under COVID. Yes, COVID has been there. But this federation will not hide under COVID in regards to the money that the sponsors were actually giving them to give to the teams.
All right. So was that also, you mentioned Star Times, and I remember there was a contentious deal with the FKF where most of the clubs, I don't know if you were included, we had Gor Mahia, we had Ulinzi, who felt they were shortchanged with this particular deal. Something was not very clean with that particular broadcasting deal with Star Times as well. Right? Are you privy to this information? What really happened now that you're actually mentioning them? Was that resolved?
Yes, I'm privy to this information.
Yes.
And maybe today I'll let the cat out of the bag. It was very unfortunate because as chairman of AFC, first and foremost, I didn't sign that thing. It was signed long time ago. For AFC, I don't know. It was signed long time ago. It was just brought on the table. AFC has signed.
And
when I started those words,
hold on, you did not append your signature on it?
I did not append my signature.
So what, was this a forgery?
It was not a forgery. You see, in a leadership, like for example, in AFC Leopards, we have the chairman, the treasurer, and the chairman, the secretary, and the treasurer in that picking order. Somebody took advantage. I was sick, isolated somewhere with COVID, and I was told AFC Leopards had signed. But I realized, by the way, we didn't read these things. And that's why I'm saying that was poor governance in terms of you are setting people against each other. If I stood up and said, FC has not signed this, FC has not done this, I could have opened a Pandora or a can of worms, which was difficult with the prevailing circumstances that we were going through as a club at that time. What I decided to do, now that this thing was out, FC was a key player in those decision making, key player. And it was unfortunate, my colleagues felt we had let them down. But I told myself, there will be no 2 leagues. I will do whatever diplomatic skills I have to have 1 league. And I thought the federation will actually thank me for having 1 league. And I had to talk to my colleagues who were on the other side, who had refused to sign, and tell them, let us have 1 league. Let us not sign this. And even I talked to the federation. It was important for us to start playing football. Now that the government has opened, we play, and we play under 1 umbrella. I will bring the rest on the table. I remember when I was negotiating with the rest, the CEO called me and told me, Shikanda, tunasikia umetusaliti, umeenda kuongea na wale. I told him no. As an elder and as somebody who has been in football, we have to play 1 league. And I thank God it came to pass. We all came under 1 umbrella. Gor Mahia, Ulinzi, Mathare United, and Zukericho had reservations, which we agreed, because of the reservations they have, let us see how to go forward. Remember, Rachel also didn't sign. It is his secretary who signed. So we realized what was happening, but we focused on the bigger picture. The bigger picture was, can we put our house in order? We play 1 league, we try and attract corporate sponsorship so that we can move forward as a country, as a footballing nation, because it was affecting everyone. And I didn't want a scenario whereby we get all messed up in these murky waters of who is not playing, who was signed, who was not signed. But honestly speaking, it was very wrong to twist clubs to sign those deals, which up to date, I wonder, and I think a lot of clubs have not seen those contracts of BetKing, those contracts of Star Times. It's very unfortunate.
Very unfortunate. It appears to me that the issue of corporate governance is not running, athwart when it comes to football fraternity here in the country. We are not seeing that being exercised. I think that will also bring a sense of, and a modicum of organization and sobriety in running the affairs of football here in the country that is woefully inadequate within these particular clubs and the federation?
I can tell you, I wouldn't want to talk about other federations. I would just like to focus on football. It's an opportunity, maybe...
Yes. Football, this is what we are particularly intent on. And I'm talking about the corporate governance that should be streamlined within, FKF, as it were.
Yeah. I think it should be streamlined. And I am happy with the caretaker committee. I know there's been a lot of cries that, oh, these are not football people. We don't need football people to run football. We need proper governance, proper corporate governance to make sure that we have systems that run. Because without systems, for example, the last 2 years, AFC Leopards, we have made huge strides in building a football team that can compete for the league and win the league. And I'm proud to say, last year I finished 4th behind 3 corporate clubs, Tusker, KCB, and Bandari. If I had half of the money these clubs use to run their leagues, their teams, I could have won the league in the first leg.
But Dan, let me ask you, why should we always be navel-gazing? Fans should be the source, all the way coming from FKF only. Why can't you diversify your portfolio, so to speak, in terms of, revenue generation, that it doesn't really necessarily come from FKF, that if that money doesn't trickle down to you, then you're awfully inadequate to operate as a club. There are many partners, I would believe, that would want to associate with the FC Leopards. There are many, clubs out there. There are many people who are fans, and they want to subscribe, to FC Leopards, to get the merchandise, to be the fan clubs. How then are you also using this opportunity to just think outside the box on how you can generate revenue to run the club?
Interesting question, and I can assure you, first and foremost, before you can dive into all that and maybe make some revenue out of that, people will always be looking at where you are on the table, what kind of football you're playing. For the last 2 years, I've focused on the team on the pitch. We've done a little in terms of revenue generation outside the pitch and the rest.
Yes.
But I can tell you for free, I have decided, I have 6 months in the office.
Yes.
I am swapping that. For the next 6 months, we want not to build AFC in the air, but we want to build AFC on a physical infrastructure. It's unfortunate. We were incepted in 1964, but we do not have our own training ground. There's a day I remember my coach fighting with the former president of the federation because they clashed on a training pitch somewhere in Karen. Kariobangi Sharks were training from 7 to 9. We were training from 10 to midday, but they extended. By 10, they had not finished. And my coach, Patrick Osem, said, time is time. I think just went straight to the pitch and told them to get out. And yes, I'm not here to wholly blame the federation on our woes. The woes that we have now is that there has been monies owed to these clubs which has not been coming to make sure that critical functions in the club can actually run. What I decided, especially now that God has given me a second chance. And I'm saying God has given me a second chance because Shikanda must go by December. I could not have had the time to build the structure that I'm going to build in the next 6 months. We have been looking for certain issues to make sure that we can have our own training field, we can have our own offices where we will start from, and we are working hard so that come next month, we can all realize this and just focus on revenue generation. We have tried to build a team that we have given it to the technical bench and make sure, I will tell them, whatever results they get, we must finish top 3, if not winning the league. And I'll tell our fans, don't write us off. We are in this league to still compete. But as a leadership, who we are now having 6 months, we want to put a physical infrastructure where we shall build the team from and make sure that this team can be, this time can be a turning point in Kenyan football.
Right, Dan, I'm a little bit disappointed because all I hear is here you're looking for an office and you're looking for a training ground.
Yes.
I'm wondering then, how then do we continue to nurture also the youthful, young children that we have in this country who they are very passionate and they're impassioned, you know, on anything to do with football. You're not even talking about, you know, AFC Leopards Football Academy, right? You just want the running of the office and you just want the training ground. That should be the big vision, sir.
The vision is this. First and foremost, first things first. It's unfortunate, and maybe apologies to members of AFC Leopards and maybe football fraternity at large. Since 58 years ago, we don't have our training ground.
Yes.
We are trying to work our best to have somewhere where we can train. And if it were not for COVID for the last 2 years, we have actually lost a whole season because of COVID. Seriously, challenges that we could neither do much nor try and salvage one or two things. But what is in our program now, we want to get somewhere where we can actually house the FC. What you're talking about, academy, yes, we have plans, and there's some land also. We've been chasing 2 parcels of land, one in Nairobi, one up country, but it all depends with us getting the one in Nairobi and getting our training field, then getting the one in up country, because we want to go back to Mashinani where our base is and actually build an academy.
Thank you.
All those 2 are in progress, and I'm sure they will come to pass before my term expires in June next year.
Thank you. Thank you. Dan Shikanda, the chairman of SC Leopards. Thank you for coming through this morning and fully articulating on what is happening on the football fraternity. You know, the current state of play. We have a caretaker committee who is trying to salvage the affairs of football in this country. We're still waiting and putting our eyes peeled on that to see how that really develops. But nonetheless, I want to thank you, sir, for cordially discussing this morning on this particular matter. Right, I just want to probably, before I take a short break, yes, you're watching News Center, and right now, when we come back, we'll be heading to Meru, where Alan Ochanda is standing by, and he will give us, you know, an update of what is happening. Deputy President William Ruto is kicking off his 2-day campaign tour there, and his visit, I should say, comes with amid loud murmurs from some leaders in the region who claim regional parties are threatened. So we'll give you the full gritty details of this on the other side of a break.
This is KTN News.
Express Sawa Sawa. Sawa na Sawa Liquid Hand Wash inapatikana katika variant 3, original, strawberry na aloe vera. Sawa Liquid Hand Wash yenye harufu ya kuvutia, uhakikisha mikono yako inabaki kuwa laini. Bidhaa bora kutoka Pwani Oil Products Limited.
Kenya is a superpower in the world of sport generally. We have first-class athletes. There is absolutely no reason why Kenya should also not be a superpower in soccer. We eat the same food, drink the same water, go to the same schools. What has been lacking is just efficient, transparent management.
Seventh and final annual Devolution Conference is back. The conference will take place from the 23rd to the 26th of November 2021 at Makueni Boys High School, Makueni County. The theme of the conference is multi-level governance for climate action, with the sub-theme Sub-National Mobilization in Unlocking the Full Potential of Climate Action During and After Pandemics. The conference will be officiated by His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, President of the Republic of Kenya. To register as a delegate or exhibitor, visit www.devolutionconference.cog.go.ke or call 0718 242 203. Be there.
This is a board meeting, a business trip, a negotiating table. This is growing your assets, future-proofing, work attire, a social network. This is an apprenticeship, a business partner, the night shift. Discover business news that's relevant to you with Money Daily from the BBC.
This is the Opportunities Are Here Project X. This is the third and final live selection. I'm going to remember so many words. Let me hold you. But today was really amazing, and thank you so much, contestants, for showcasing what you have.
When we started this show, News Hour, we wanted to create a platform where anybody and everybody would come and talk about whatever they wanted to say without their voices being silenced, except by the deep content of their brains. And we wanted to balance opinion. In a country where news flies faster than light, newsmakers need to be accountable. Policymakers need to be responsible. And that's what we do on News Hour. We base the show on one core foundation of journalism, the truth.
This is KTN News.
Welcome back. Right now, Deputy President William Ruto, we understand, is kicking off his two-day tour campaign of the Meru region. Ruto's visit comes amid loud murmurs from some leaders in the region who claim regional parties are threatened, a situation they fear will stifle democracy and affect the quality of leaders to be elected. Alan Ochanda is putting tails on this particular tour in Meru and is standing by. Alan, over to you. Good morning. Good to see you.
Well, Dibal, good morning to you. Yes, indeed, we are in Meru, of course, at Githongo grounds here. And you can see the friends here. The DP is already making his way here, and he will be in Meru for 2 days. Remember that it's today and tomorrow, Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, he will be in Tharaka Nithi County. And so, remember that he's coming in the backdrop of complaints from local leaders that maybe they feel that, yes, they are going into UDA, but they are feeling that maybe the nomination exercise will not be fair. But remember, the DP has assured them that there should actually be a fair exercise. Remember that he said that there will be no preferential treatment for any person, because the new entrants say that those who have actually been actually been seen as veterans in the party, actually just to term them as veterans in the party. You saw, yes, it's a new party, but we have people who actually began the journey with the DP. And so the new entrants really feel that the nomination exercise may not be fair, but the DP has been assuring them. Also remember, yesterday we saw the former agriculture CS, Mwangi Kiunjuri, saying that as a region, they really want the DP to concentrate on the presidential polls only, but leave the other elective seats for the local leaders, of course, for the party leaders. Remember that we've had several political parties mushrooming up in Mount Kenya, also the TSP led by Mwangi Kiunjuri. And so such leaders saying that they really want the political space for their political parties to also have what they term as a free political space. But the DP is already here, he's addressing, and so we shall also be catching up later. Let's just go and listen in so that we cannot really miss anything from his speech here. Dibal.
Mambo namna gani? Very good. Mnaona hasla kwa area. Kwanza wacha nimwambie huyu MCA wenu aseme maneno kidogo.
All right, Donald Nochand there, who is putting tails on Deputy William Ruto's tour in Meru. Remember also, last week we had IBC, who had actually made sure that, trying to just put my ducks in a row there, they had rejected nomination rules submitted by dozens of parties because they supposedly violated the law, and exposing how primaries are bungled and subsequently compromised the general election. And that also was inclusive of the UDA party, as Alan was mentioning there, the nominations which are coming up right now. Right, we want to just move on right now and keep you up to speed. We find out what is happening in the North Rift right now. Which way north? My autocue has just failed me, so we shall go straight to it.
Of all the northern communities, including Samburu, including Isiolo, including everywhere, that have come to this function to support each other because of the pool that Waziri has created amongst us. I think this is very, very important.
Nilisema ule mtu alitubeba kutoka chini, alitushikilia, alificha aibu yetu, akakuja Wajia, akatuchangia pesa. Hatutaweza kumwacha, tutakufa na yeye maisha na milele.
We must get the politics right. When you get the politics right, you also get the other bits right. Kwa sababu Moi alisema leo hatutazungumza siasa, lakini mzee Moi alisema kwa jumla siasa mbaya, maisha mbaya. Let's all think collectively together. Let's put our small difference aside. Kwa wakati huu tunashukuru serikali na hii wale kamati walisimamia hii.
Because God and Uhuru Kenyatta trusted us with that responsibility. We want to pay back to Kenyans. We want to pay back to our region. And we want to remain grateful to Uhuru Kenyatta for what he has done for us. Na utaratibu ni tumeamua tu, we are blind to any other stories. Story yetu ni gani? Uhuru Kenyatta akisema right, sinaenda right. Mambo mengine tutauliza baada ya election. Tukisema left, sisi hatuulizi, we'll go that direction.
All right, let's turn our focus now on the drought situation in the country, where the drought being experienced in 10 of the country's 47 counties continue to ravage parts of the Tana River and Kilifi counties. Pastoralists are losing their livestock by the day due to lack of pasture. They're now calling on the government to implement the off-take program to cushion them from further losses.
The struggle by this cow to get back on its feet paints the picture of the struggle for survival by both animals and people in Tana River. Dozens of cows have died due to lack of pasture in what locals term as one of the worst drought seasons yet.
Haya kiangazi ambapo tuliopata mwaka huu hatujawahi kuona katika Tana River ama Magarini.
Ng'ombe zinakufa na hata hakuna mahali ya malisho, ni kuomba mashamba za watu ama kuzinunua.
It has been a long journey in search of pasture by pastoralists who trekked from Hola in Tana River County to Marereni in Kilifi County 3 months ago.
Tumetoka Hola tumefika Kurawa. Tumekaa karibu mwezi mmoja hivi. Nimekula nyasi, nimepata nyasi kidogo. Nyasi imeisha, hakuna nyasi chochote.
A journey that has not been successful.
Nimekufa ilikuwa ni 30. Nimebaki na 10 sasa.
Hasara kubwa sana. Kusikia ng'ombe zimekuja zaidi ya 200 hapa na zinaregeshwa zikiwa chini ya 50.
Here in Marereni in Kilifi, locals who had welcomed the pastoralists are not comfortable anymore.
Hapa ni ajili ya mzoga haikaliki. Hii mji wa Marereni watu wameshindwa kukaa sababu ya mzoga.
Watu wa Marereni pia tumewasumbua sababu hii harufu imeingia kwa masoko mpaka watu wameshindwa kukaa kwa masoko kwa sababu ya mizoga imejaa area hii.
With no hope of finding pasture for their livestock, they have no option but to return home to Tana River.
Kurudisha huko nyumbani. Kama ni kukufia wache zikufie mahali zimekoka.
Ng'ombe hizo hata zikirudi nyumbani hakuna mahali wataenda kuuza, hakuna soko, hakuna mwenye anataka kununua. Ng'ombe ilikuwa shilingi 70,000 kwa dume ambayo ilikuwa inauzwa hapa, saa hii inauzwa shilingi 5,000.
They're now asking the government to step in.
Tunaona ng'ombe zetu zimekufa, tunasema serikali tusaidie, tufanyie fidia.
Tunaomba serikali kwa hali na mali utusaidie sisi kama watu wa Tana River na Kilifi County.
Serikali ya national ifanye ile kitu inaitwa animal offtake.
In Isiolo, Interior PS Karanja Kibisho led the distribution of food to affected residents.
Tuko na 1,000 bags ya 50 kg ya mchele. Tuko na gunia 200 za maharagwe.
Rita Tinina, KTN News.
And that story by Rita Tinina also will act as a segue to our next session where we discuss the climate situation in the country. And I'll be joined momentarily by Nickson Otieno, who is an environmental expert, to tell us more about the COVID-19, not really COVID-19, but the COP26, of course, the conference that was happening in Glasgow. But right now, the latest surge of arson cases in schools countrywide has prompted one school within Elgeyo Marakwet County to come up with innovative ways to arrest the wave of unrest. Even though school fires and students' unrest now are not new, Tembach High School organized student-led extracurricular activities dubbed Fun Day to ease the current tension among students. According to Tembach Chief Principal Michael Cheruyot, school games, entertainment, life and leadership camps are vital in instilling discipline among students.
I've actually maintained the high level of discipline which is actually expected from us, from the county, and we are also encouraging the other students from other schools that they copy our example and take us as their actual role models, because what we are doing is actually not done in almost all schools.
Students have been under pressure since we began the term because we had a lot of academic programs, because the term has been shortened. And we decided that we have it today so that we can also ease that pressure from academic and even discover ourselves in terms of the talents that we have. Through such events, we normally discover that our students are very endowed with a lot of talents, and when we give them opportunity, they actually explore them and for their future. So I think this is very important activity that most schools should embrace so that we discover the talents of our young students when they're in high school before they go to the field of work. They are outside there.
Right, we want now to drill deeper to more on climate change talk, and I'm joined by Nickson Otieno, who is an environmental expert, to tell us more about the COP26. They came up with the first draft, as it were, right now, and as curtains closed on climate change summit COP26 in Glasgow, Scotland this past weekend, it is curious that the discourse on this issue of global importance is yet to gain traction in Kenya, even during a busy campaigning period. We are yet to hear any politician bring up the issue of climate change or even conservation of the environment. In fact, the biggest discussion in as far as climate change summit is concerned is conserved, or Kenya is conserved, and was the size of Kenya's delegation to the conference. And we want to take these matters seriously and discuss with Nickson. Nickson, over to you. First of all, I want just to thank you for joining us this morning here on News Center. And I'll begin by asking you, first of all, what was your overview of the entire conference in Glasgow before we drill deeper?
Yeah,
Thank you very much. Indeed, the conference was important for not only the global community, but also us as a nation, and even the local communities, because it brought over 200 world leaders together to discuss and prioritize the agenda of climate change, and to come up with actions and commitments that can ensure that we arrest the issue of climate change, to ensure that we don't really expose our communities and people to the adverse effects. So this is a very relevant summit, and especially to shift the political commitment and focus towards this issue, which is an existential threat to our communities and the people who are mostly vulnerable. Thank you.
Right, and it brings to question the fact that we have also parties within this particular country that they're gravitating towards environmental social governance. I'm aware of Green Party, even as we're talking about the general election in 2022. People also are running with the idea that, yes, it's a reality check that climate change is here with us, global warming is here with us. But how do we then, you as an environmental expert, how then do we make sure that these parties, they are particularly intent on climate change as an action point?
Yeah, thank you very much. There are two ways of looking at that issue of aligning the political parties' manifesto with the climate change and the larger environmental conservation agenda. First, of course, you've mentioned the Green Party that that is really encouraged, that we have a party that is exclusively committed to the conservation agenda as a key topic, as a key philosophy in their political governance structure. But I have to say that, of course, you are aware that this Green Party still does not have necessarily the significant following, political following that it needs to be able to galvanize a critical mass of people and citizenry to support the environmental agenda. So that brings us to the second issue, that we really don't need to think of the climate change and environmental agenda as an issue that is championed by a particular party. Rather, the climate change and environment agenda should be mainstreamed into all facets of the society. So all political parties, and especially the major political parties we have in this country, really need to mainstream this issue into their manifestation, into their manifesto. And not only as a climate change and environment agenda, but also to look at the possibilities of mainstreaming the issue in different sectors. For example, if they're looking at their agriculture priorities, then we need to look at how to be able to look at our agricultural sector being protected from the vulgarities of weather, changing weather and the climate, to ensure that we're able to guarantee our farmers, we're able to, productivity even in the light of the changing climate, to ensure that the construction sector or the manufacturing sector or all other sectors have the mechanisms to integrate environmental conservation and climate change mitigation and adaptation actions in the items. So this is a very important issue that we need to actually empower the parties, not only to be dedicated to an environmental or climate change agenda, but to mainstream, looking at the sectors critically. That is my point of view as far as environmental governance is concerned.
Yes, thank you. And of course, I know by now you're privy to the COP26 draft agreement that had some very seminal points and was addressed at the conference of parties, as it were. We'll drill deeper into that momentarily. But I think also for Africa and Kenya, for that matter, was a big win that we had some funding coming from the World Bank, close to $150 billion, that this will, 150 billion shillings, I should say, that will go to the counties. And we know that with the advent of the Climate Change Act 2016, it recognizes the subnational county government as key implementers when it comes to climate change actions, as it were. Tell us more about this particular fund. And I spoke to His Excellency Dr. Wilbur Otichilo, who is the governor of Vihiga, and also he happens to be the chair of Environment and Climate Change Committee at the Council of Governors. We know there will be a big conference of the Devolution conference, which is coming up very soon, I think next week. And they will be also focusing on climate change as a theme.
Yeah, thank you. Indeed, as you rightfully said, climate finance was a major issue of discussion at the COP26 conference in Glasgow. And this particularly is premised on the fact that most of the nations which the Conference of Parties called parties, so the parties in the UNFCCC climate change agenda are called parties, recognize that many of the countries that are adversely affected by climate change, who are bearing the greater impact of climate change, are often the least contributors in terms of the greenhouse gases that exacerbate climate change. But also they are under-resourced in terms of their capacities to be able to put in measures to protect their populations, to help their populations who are vulnerable adapt. So it is in that context that climate finance was looked at as a very important agenda, that we have to ensure that we create equity in the environmental climate change agenda, that such that the nations, the developed nations that are polluting most, who are contributing a lot to the increasing greenhouse gases and the changing climate significantly, also contribute financial resources to support the nations and the communities that are most vulnerable, but also contributing little to be able to take up actions to help them adapt and build their resilience towards climate change. And it is in that context that, as you have mentioned, a lot of commitments were being pushed, and World Bank, you have given an example, that the developed nations are committed themselves to really ensure that every year that they commit at least $100 billion US flowing to the developing nations to help them implement climate change adaptation and mitigation measures. And of course, that World Bank financing is welcome, but also, as you rightfully mentioned it, as a country also, we have one of the very progressive climate change laws in the world. We have the Climate Change Act of 2016, which in itself provides a mechanism for climate change funding. So we have the Climate Change Fund that is not only at the national level, but also the counties are empowered to come up with their mechanisms. And we have some of the counties, for example, the Vihiga County, which is headed by the governor, Otichilo, whom you mentioned. We have Makueni County, that have already enacted their climate change acts, and they're already creating climate change funds, so that part of the funding that the county is receiving, they have dedicated finance to support climate change actions at the local level. At the national level also, I am aware the Treasury has been doing a lot of work to be able to track, provide instruments for tracking all the resources that are coming into the county, and look at how are these funds aligned to help address the climate change agenda. So you would understand that, for example, in the last year, this the country Kenya received about $2.5 billion in terms of climate change finance flows, either coming from the development partners or coming from the private sector. Of course, the private sector contribution was still insignificant, with about only less than 25% coming from the private sector. So we need to look at not only the funds that are coming from the development partner, the international community, out of that pocket of $100 billion that have been committed by nations out of the COP26 conference. But also we need to look at ourselves locally. How do we spend our budget? You know, the money that comes from the exchequer, the money that we commit from the revenues that we collect at the national level. Are we investing them into those priority programs that will help cushion our communities, our vulnerable populations, from the adverse impact of climate change? So that is really where the counties become really important. We do need not only to talk about the 35% of the budget that we have nationally being pushed to the county, but even that 35%, we should ensure that is prudently spent to ensure that our communities that are vulnerable are protected from the effects of climate change. So again, I would emphasize the agenda of a mainstreaming, that we don't need only to look at dedicated climate fund, but we also need to look at the mechanisms of integrating climate change into the stream of funding. I give you an example. Most of us are currently inconvenienced by the road works that is ongoing. Infrastructure is a major project that we are undertaking as a country. We need to ensure that out of those billions that are spent also in the infrastructure, we include climate change component into it. For example, we would look at our road infrastructure that we are building to ensure that they are built to be resilient to the impact of climate change. For example, recently we had a case where part of the road, like Suswa, if you're traveling through to Narok, that was cut off at a certain time by the floods. So we need to ensure that even the infrastructure funding that are going into these major projects should provide mechanisms to ensure that those infrastructure we are building are designed, are constructed to ensure that they are able to withstand the most extreme weather events that we may foresee in the near future, so that we don't put 10 billion into an infrastructure that in the next 10 or 20 years would be swept up by floods or would be really swept off by other extreme climate events. Thank you.
Right. Nickson, maybe just to be educated by you, the fact that we had the Climate Change Act 2016 that also brought to office the National Climate Directorate, I wonder what is the role of this particular directorate in line of what we're talking about when we have the implementation of these policies that we are looking forward to how the 47 counties also have their own climate change policies and the implementation of it. What is the role of the directorate?
Yeah, thank you. Indeed, the Climate Change Act established the Directorate as one of the key governance institutions that are pivotal in driving the agenda of the climate change. Of course, we also have the other institutions like the Climate Change Council, which is chaired by the President himself. So the role of the Directorate, if I may not really quote directly, but I would just give an overview, is to be able to coordinate the climate change actions across the sectors. You understand that climate change and environment agenda is a cross-cutting issue. It is not purely an issue of the Ministry of Environment or just the environment sector. As I mentioned, for example, you look at agriculture, and just before we came on air on this show, you are featuring the impact of climate change on agriculture. We are looking at other sectors like the tourism industry. We have basically all sectors of the economy that are affected by climate change and need to take action. So the role of the Climate Change Directorate is to provide a coordination mechanism to bring all these key sectors together to ensure that they are able to make commitments that are aligned with the national commitment that the government of Kenya has made. We have commitments that are outlined in the Act. We have commitments that are aligned in the other plans. For example, what we call the National Adaptation Plan. We have the Climate Change Action Plan that are committing the country to take certain actions to ensure that we reduce the emissions that we are generating and ensure that we protect our communities from the effects of climate change. So the role of the Directorate is to ensure that all these different sectors come up with actions that would help them address it will help the country address the climate change agenda. And I would give examples of some of the actions that the Directorate has undertaken in the past. For example, I talked about the climate funding. So what the Directorate was able to do through mobilizing resources from the international community like UNDP, the Directorate was implementing a project called Directorate that helped to come up with mechanisms to help the counties and the national government be able to track and monitor climate finance. So the Treasury has developed tools to be able to record climate change funding in the budget and be able to track it and monitor so that you have an accountability mechanism. Number two, the Directorate also has supported a mechanism to develop reporting and verification tools so that even as we go back to the Conference of Parties, or when we go to the conference like we had in Glasgow recently, the country can be able to have very clearly well-set science-based targets of our emissions so that they are not really just figures we are quoting from nowhere. They are informed by real data. And we are also be able to track them and be able to say that this is the extent to which we are developing in terms of the climate change actions. Number three, the Directorate is also responsible to support education. Many people, the citizenry, the different sector needs to be aware of the issue. Their capacity needs to be strengthened so that they know how they can take action in their different sectors to be able to contribute to the climate change action. So, for example, the Directorate over the past 2 years, towards late of this year, came up with a climate change learning action and strategy. And the purpose of this strategy is to ensure that the climate change agenda and environmental agenda is mainstream into all levels of learning, both formal and informal, and starting even from the lowest level as low as the primary school level, so that our young people know what the climate change issue is and the actions that they need to take. The different sectors also know what their role could be in addressing the climate change agenda. And there are many other issues that we could highlight, but in the interest of time, I could just flag out some of those as the key actions that the Directorate is supposed to help us address. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much, Nickson. We want just to take a short break right now and of course, run the commercials. Then we circle back. We continue with you, Nickson. I think you have a rich repository of your knowledge to teach us on climate change and the way forward, as it were. When we circle back, Nickson, maybe this is what you should be also marinating on, because everywhere, even from the corporates, the entire world now is focusing on environmental, social, and governance. And we're talking about corporate governance. We're talking about the integrated reporting that even financially we can see they're calling for, corporates to have in their balance sheet accounting on how they're actually also conserving the environment. As much as they're extracting, how much are they giving as well? We'll take a short break right now. Don't go away.
This is KTN News.
Express Sawa Sawa. Sawa na Sawa Liquid Hand Wash inapatikana katika variant tatu: original, strawberry na aloe vera. Sawa Liquid Hand Wash yenye harufu ya kuvutia, uhakikisha mikono yako inabaki kuwa laini. Bidhaa bora kutoka Pwani Oil Products Limited.
This is a board meeting, a business trip, a negotiating table. This is growing your assets, future-proofing, work attire, a social network. This is an apprenticeship, a business partner, the night shift. Discover business news that's relevant to you with Money Daily from the BBC.
Ministry of Industrialization, Trade and Enterprise Development, in conjunction with the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO, and the County Government of Laikipia, welcomes you to the Africa Industrialization Week celebrations to be held in Nanyuki Town, Mount Kenya Road, from 15th to 18th November 2021. The theme is Industrializing Africa, Renewed Commitments Towards an Inclusive and Sustainable Industrialization and Economic Diversification. Come all, let us celebrate our micro, small, medium enterprises, MSMEs, innovations together.
When we started this news hour, we wanted to create a platform where anybody and everybody would come and talk about whatever they wanted to say without their voices being silenced, except by the deep content of their brains. And we wanted to balance opinion. In a country where news flies faster than light, newsmakers need to be accountable. Policymakers need to be responsible. And that's what we do on News Hour. We base the show on one core foundation of journalism: the truth.
Looking for a business starter pack to get your business off the ground? Spread the word on your product or service offerings, reach a wider audience, and recruit clients and customers with bulk SMSs courtesy of Standard Group Value-Added Services. For only 10,000 Kenya shillings, you get a sender ID plus complimentary 10,000 bulk SMS units with an option of a free API integration to enable you to grow your client base and expand your business through effective targeted messaging. Visit vas.standardmedia.co.ke to sign up and find out more about how you can add value to your business with Standard Value-Added Services. This is KTN News.
Welcome back. Now, Kenyans have taken to social media to wish retired President Mwai Kibaki happy birthday. As he turns 90 today, Kibaki has maintained a low profile since he handed over power to his successor, President Uhuru Kenyatta, in 2013. He was last seen in public in February last year when he was driven to Parliament to view the body of the late President Daniel Arap Moi. The public hasn't been informed how the 90-year-old retired president is doing, with the state and office of the former president remaining secretive on the whereabouts and the health status of Kibaki. Among those who have shared birthday wishes for the retired president on Twitter is Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka, who says, quote-unquote, whatever different views people across our country have, it is clear that the vast majority share the opinion that Mwai Kibaki served our nation with unparalleled dedication, a clear sense of public service and duty. Happy birthday, happy 90th birthday, President Mwai Kibaki. I think this is a good place also to sing for him. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Right, we drill deeper and continue pace with the conversation with Nickson Otieno, who is a climate expert. And Nickson, maybe I can give you also a sporting chance to wish former president happy birthday as well.
Yeah, great happy birthday, 90th birthday to former president Mwai Kibaki. Indeed, he served the country with a great dedication, and we are witnesses. May he continue to have good health and inspire the next and current leaders to follow in his footsteps, especially as far as development is concerned.
Fantastic.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to him. Right, as I mentioned earlier, and I think also you're marinating on it, environmental, social and governance is taking preeminence in many corporates right now, people focusing on the whereabouts about the environment and how also even the corporates are extracting from the environment, they have to give back to the environment. We have the issue of the integrated reporting as well, which has come to the fore, that requires also those corporates to be accountable on how they're taking care of the environment. It's not just about corporate social responsibility right now, but integrated reporting as well. How do you think this augur well with what is happening with climate change right now? Is it getting any traction?
Yeah, thank you very much. Indeed, as I said earlier, climate change and environmental conservation agenda requires the intervention of all facets of the society. And we cannot ignore in that light the role of the private sector, the corporate industry, in terms of taking action. And in Kenya, of course, also globally, we're seeing the corporates realizing that climate change and environmental sustainability agenda is not just an issue for them to take as a PR exercise, but it is a core component of their business, that if they don't take seriously the social and environmental issues, then they cannot guarantee themselves their third bottom line, which is the profit.
Yes.
So there is need for that responsibility for them. And in Kenya, I would give as an example, while we were having the COP26 conference ongoing, there was an effort at the national level with the corporates in these countries coming together in a conference that happened last week. They called it Corporate Climate Change Commitment. And you had over 50 corporates in this country coming together to sign a charter that commits them to 10 key action points to be at the leading seat, in the leading seat, to be able to take actions to address the climate change agenda, of course, including reporting. When you talk about reporting, I think it is important for us to ensure that we have proper instrument not only to report, but that we first have clear commitment in terms of the actions we want to take.
Yes.
And we have a clear way to track these actions and then report on them transparently, so that we don't end up into an age of greenwashing where people take action for the purpose of photos, and then they report just to be able to pacify the public and make it appear that they are taking action that is good for the society and for the environment. And so you rightfully mentioned that we have to go beyond the CSR. I don't think we need to go beyond the CSR, but we really have to go deep into the corporate social responsibility, or some call it corporate sustainability responsibility, to ensure that the CSR is the core part of the business, that the business exists to address the social needs and environmental needs, and while doing so, they generate profits for the shareholders. So the shareholders need not to be at the center of the business for now and going forward, but they should be addressing the business needs, which are, of course, the customers' needs. Unless the customers are happy, the corporates will not have the business. So it is important that these corporates are taking action, but we need to encourage them more. We need not only to look at a scenario where it is only the top 50 corporates or the top 100, but how do we also sensitize and empower the medium and the small enterprises, those many of the business people who may not necessarily have big budget, they may not be able to hire more knowledgeable people. How can we encourage them and empower them also to be part and parcel of the corporate commitments towards sustainability, to ensure that the last customer, the consumers that they are serving, enjoy these social and environmental benefits that they are committing themselves to do.
Right. Nickson, maybe also something that you've mentioned that orients my thinking towards incentivizing people when it comes to carbon trading as well.
Yeah.
That can be another forum that people can, really also eke out a living from. But how do we really have the capacity? Because also, there's a good talk about the carbon sequestration capacity and how we can actually develop that in the country. We store all this carbon dioxide, and we see how we can trade with that as well. I don't know. Let me just take your turn of thought on this and enlighten us in terms of how can we boost this particular trading and incentivize even the young people on carbon trading.
Yeah, thank you. You're bringing a very important point on looking at the opportunity of the carbon market. Indeed, the conference that ended, the COP26 conference, one of the issues that they were looking at is to be able to provide a recognizable and credible market for carbon. So the science of carbon market is simple. If I may just help our viewers understand, it is the sense that we're talking about climate change is caused largely by carbon gases, and these carbon gases they are different. Of course, we have greenhouse gases that are coming from carbon, we have methane and different gases. So the idea of carbon market is that people, while they are doing their business or they are running their operations, they end up emitting carbons which cause climate change. And it may be impractical for some of them to be able to take certain action to completely eradicate the emissions of those gases or to reduce them. So the idea of the carbon market is to allow opportunity for people who are releasing a lot of carbon into the atmosphere, who may not be able to take very rigorous action to reduce that, be able to invest in other people who are either affected by the climate change agenda, the emissions they're releasing, or are able to take action to reduce carbon. So for an example, if you would refer to the youth you are talking about, or the women who are vulnerable, we know our country wants to achieve 10% forest cover because forestation is one of the opportunities for reducing carbon emission, because the trees act as carbon sink. They absorb that carbon. Now, many youth would be able to make a living if they were involved in tree planting, of course, from generating the trees and maintaining them, that they ensure that they grown. But for them to do this activity, they need some money, resources to invest in. So corporates who are producing, for example, if I would take the case here of the Standard Media Group, maybe because you're using a lot of server, you consume a lot of energy in your emissions, and your crew have to travel across the country to be able to cover the news. So you use a lot of fuel in your vehicles to cover the news. So what the carbon market, even locally, would help you to do is that Standard Media Group would look at its operation and say, because in our operations, we emit this amount of carbon, and our core business is not to plant trees, or our core business is not to provide clean energy. So we, as a corporate entity, we know we are emitting, say, 1,000 tons of carbon. We are going to commit this equivalent of money to invest into groups that are doing activities that can sequestrate that carbon. So, for example, youth groups that are basically raising seedling and planting trees. So you adopt a certain part of the forest to plant the trees that would offset the amount of carbon you are emitting. Or for example, you could also choose to invest in women groups, for example, who are cooking with dirty fuels. So they are relying on wood fuels that is cut from the forest, that continues to increase the contribution to climate change agenda. So the Standard Media Group could invest part of that money to those women groups to ensure that those households are given cleaner cooking stoves, which are using cleaner fuels like ethanol, like LPG, that reduce the carbon emissions. So in that case, we are looking at an opportunity which is win-win, that they corporates on this side who are contributing to high carbon emissions are able to invest money in the market to allow the vulnerable members of the society, to allow the other sectors of the society take actions that can offset the emissions they're generating. So in that way, we begin to unlock the opportunity in climate change and translate it from a boardroom conversation to something that is of reality to the people within the community. And I would give you lastly on this matter an example that I am involved in as also, I'm an architect also practicing. And within the sector, we've come up with an instrument we call Endelavo Africa to allow the corporates contribute some of the waste material constructions waste that they are generating, which are dumped, ending up contributing to climate change. We divert this, they contribute this, and we repurpose them and use them to construct social infrastructure facilities. For example, lactation facilities in learning institutions, in public spaces, schools that our children need so that they have better environment. And in that way, we are not only contributing to diverting waste from the environment, but also we are contributing to provide better social facilities that can protect our people while creating jobs. So the carbon market is a very essential part, and I must say we don't need to only think about it as international carbon market. While that is important, we have development partners, developing nations and corporates bringing in money to the country. We also need to go beyond and look at the carbon market opportunities within our country, within our counties, and working together with the stakeholders in other sectors so that we can unlock this potential, and especially to make climate change agenda a reality for Wanjiku. Thank you.
Thank you, Nickson. You've spoken quite compellingly on the issue of climate change, and I think also, yes, the policymakers are listening to you as well, and they can take that particular action going forward. Were you aware, briefly, as I give you an opportunity also to just wind up all the COP26 draft agreements, just to highlight just 2 or 3 from those particular agreements in a nutshell as we're closing, what was your view?
Thank you very much. I think there were 4 key action areas I would highlight. Number 1, of course, is to deal with the issues of funding, which we have talked a lot about, and there is a lot of interest on that, so that is a good thing. We need to fast track. Number 2, there is the issue of the key sectors of intervention, and I think you earlier on was aware that one of the areas that attracted commitment of all the parties earlier was the forestation. So we need not only to look at government planting trees, but also we need to look at how we also safeguard the trees that we have planted. So agriculture sector, which has to grow, need not to continue degrading the forests that we have. The construction sector, which also consumes a lot of timber, needs to look at their intervention role to support afforestation. For example, looking at alternatives of how to get responsibly harvested timber, encourage plantation of other materials like bamboo, which grow fast and are very good sustainable materials. So we need to look at such opportunities. There was also a lot of commitment around reducing methane, and this has to do with waste management. For example, as Nairobi, as a city, we know we have a lot of challenge with our waste management. So we need to sensitize our public more and more to be responsible in how we manage waste so that we are not dumping them and we end up releasing a lot of emissions. And for your information, Nairobi is one of the few cities in the world that have committed to a climate action, with Nairobi launching a Nairobi Climate Action Agenda that commits me to take certain actions towards reducing climate change. Now, these have to be moved from paper commitments to realities that are backed with funding, are backed with actions in the community. And of course, all of us, if I'm concluding, is we really need to play our little role wherever we are, whether in terms of education, whether in terms of shifting to better technologies, or in terms of supporting others through, CSR commitment to ensure that we are able to address climate change agenda. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Nickson Otieno. You've spoken quite articulately on this issue today, and I want to thank you for that rich repository of information you've given us today. Remember, they say that we've not inherited this earth from our ancestors, but we borrowed it from our children. Let's take care of our environment. Thank you for your valid company. I'm Dibala Nair, paving way for Leo Mashinani, which is up next.